I hope everyone has had a wonderful Tuesday. It is Tuesday, isn't it? Yes, it is. For my guests who are here from outside of the US, I really appreciate you for joining us. I believe it's what, 5 p.m. your time? I appreciate you being here at the end of the day. If you're further away, I appreciate you even more. All right. All right. I think that's enough time. We'll go ahead and dive into it here. Okay, so first and foremost, hello everybody. I am Adam Rogers. I am the managing director of the U.S. branch of NETIO Products here in the United States, and I'm here today to kind of talk about a little bit about how NETIO can help you stop rolling trucks to problem situations. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a story, one that I'm actually shamelessly stealing from a friend of mine, Pete Baker is a really great friend of ours. He envisioned this idea, and it's something that he himself has run into, and I have also, and I'm pretty sure anybody else who's here has also run into this as well. So we'll start off with the story, and then we'll get into how that story applies to NETIO and how NETIO can help you in all of those applications. So as we go through today, please feel free to put your questions either in the chat, or there is a section for the Q&A. Please feel free to do that, and we'll answer those along the way. And of course, we will also open up at the end of today to further questions. So if you do have further questions, we can do it at that time. So with that said, let's dive right into it. So the story goes like this. It's Friday. It's the end of the week. You've had a really long week. You've had troubles here and there. You've also had some great successes throughout the entire week, and you're just tired. You're ready to end the day. You're ready to go home. Have a nice meal. Put some sports on the TV and just sit back and relax. It's 5 p.m. on Friday. You're finally home. You're about to take your shoes off, and at that point, you sit down, and what happens? You get a phone call or a text message from your customer, and it says, "Nothing's working. Get over here and fix it right now." Maybe they have a party that's happening over the weekend. Maybe they're also wanting to watch the game with all of their friends. Maybe it's a corporate location that they have their servers running and everything's happening on that location. So at that point, what do? Well, they're expecting you to fix it. So you put your shoes back on, you get back in the truck, you drive all the way over to wherever this is located at, and you solve the problem. But let's be real, you're going to get there and you're going to realize, what is the problem? Well, the first step that you're going to do is you're going to take a look at everything. Step number two is you're going to check and see, is it fixed by simply unplugging something and plugging it back in? Now, I don't know about you, but 90% of the time that I used to do that, because I also used to be an integrator myself, walk out there, go to the job site, unplug something, plug it back in, and now it's working. Everything's perfectly fine. So now you've been away from your family, you've been away from your comfy chair, you've been away from your dinner for an hour, 2 hours, however long it took you to get yourself put back together and back on the road, just to go and solve a problem that was simply fixed by unplugging something and plugging it back in. Now, I think I'm preaching to the choir. Someone in this group has run into that problem before. I know I have. And of course, this story from Pete Baker, Pete himself has run into this as well. So how can NETIO help solve that problem? Well, first and foremost, NETIO Products, what we are, let's start there. NETIO Products is a Czech Republic manufacturer of intelligent PDU systems. So what we do is we manufacture power distribution units. What those power distribution units do, what makes them intelligent, is that you can take these units and connect them to the internet, either your local network, or more broadly, you can connect it to the cloud, and it gives you the access to turn those outlets on and off, either through a remote application through the cloud, either a local interface, or through some kind of automation or control platform on site. So what that's going to give you the ability to do is, when you get that phone call or that text message, Well, that's fine. You can simply open up the app on your phone, open up the web browser on your computer, whatever it is, go into the cloud, hit a button, and it's going to automatically reset power to that outlet to bring everything back online so that you don't have to get up out of your chair. You can stay there, have your dinner, watch your sports, and you're happy, right? Customer's happy, and you're happy. So that's essentially the basics of what NETIO is. We'll get into some more of the details as to how that works and what you can do and all the specialties of that as we go through that. But I do want to show off a little bit of what we have to offer when it comes to products. So first thing that we'll do, I'm going to share my screen and we will take a look and see what we have. So right now, we're looking at our NETIO Products website. This is www.netio-products.com. On this website, you have the ability to go in and take a look at what we have to offer. Of course, I'm based here in the US, so we are looking at some of the US products today, is what I physically have here in front of me to show off. But we also have plenty more than that. So if you're looking for something that's different, if you're looking for something that's more localized to where you are, take a look at this here. We have anywhere from the Shuko style, the F connector, the G connector, whatever style you may have in for or a requirement for. We usually have something for that. So we have anywhere from our single outlet system, which is our power cable 1K. This is a Wi-Fi enabled device, gives you one input, one output. It's a controlled piece. That gives you the ability to log into it, reset power to the device that's plugged into it, and move on from there, right? Pretty simple stuff, pretty straightforward. We jump up from there to our 2-outlet power cable. We have our power cable 2K and our power cable 2P. We're not going to get into too much of the details for that, but this gives you 2 outputs instead of one. Jump up again to our 3 outlets. This is our 3P X system. So the X stands for it's a placeholder for your localized outlet. And then from there, we jump up to our 4, so the 4PS and the 4KS, metering versus non-metering. That's not what today is. We're not going to get into too much details as to the specific types of models of each unit, but I just want to showcase that we do have different outlet configurations. We also have the power box. This is going to be more closely, more used by the international markets, or what I'm considering the international markets. And so this is going to give you the ability to have more of the Shuko style, or we'll open it up here so you can see the other options for that. And so you can see you have the G style, the F style, and the E style. And so you can have access to that as well. Then we have from there, we have our 8-outlet unit. This 8-outlet unit is designed to be rack mounted inside of a 1U space. That gives you 8 independent outputs that are each independently controlled. If you go for the metered version gives you the ability to meter each output independently. So we have those options as well. Now, I'm talking about metering. That's going to become important here in just a little bit, because how do these apply to that story, and how do we make things continue to operate even outside of you having to roll a truck, right? That's the whole goal of this. We don't want to roll a truck. We want things to happen without interaction from us, or if we do have to push a button, we don't want to have to move from where we are, right? So we're going to talk about that here as we get into it. So a couple things that to mention first. Double check here and see if anybody's okay, good. So a couple things to mention first, of course, is the NETIO products. They're all network connected. Every single one of the products that we offer is network connected. So you're going to, when you do the installation, you're going to take the product, put it in place, plug in the connected devices into it. So whether it's an amplifier, a controller, a television, computer, whatever it is, you're going to plug it into it. Then my recommendation is when you go into the web interface of the device or of the PDU, you're going to want to name those outlets, which we give you the ability to do. Because the thing is you're not going to be there. The whole goal is for you not to be there to see what's going on. You want to be able to, at a glance from a screen, know which outlet you're resetting and know that you're actually resetting the correct one. That way you're resetting the amplifier instead of the controller. Don't want to mess that up. Okay. So from there, because they're all network connected, these devices are intelligent. We can actually ping other devices on the network, and we can use that information on whether or not that other device, that other connected device, responds as a trigger to use to turn the outlets on and off automatically. So we have on-device logic, on-device automation that allows us to go in and configure it to where the device, the PDU, can actually reset outlets automatically without our interaction. This is even better because a lot of times we are going to solve a problem before the client even realizes that there is a problem. So it's configurable. You can go in, and we're going to take a look at that here in a little bit. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of that. in just a little bit, because that one's actually a really cool thing that you can do with it. You can go in and you can really kind of design and mold that system to react how you want it to react. So we'll look at that here in just a little bit. So network connected devices, we've already talked about that. Some other thing that we want to talk about also is the different sensors that we have available. So not only do we have, we didn't want to go to obsolete, we want to go to accessories. Not only does the device itself have power metering, not only does that device also have the ability to ping another device on the network, but we also have our NETIO T1 sensor. This is our thermistor. You plug this into any of our devices that has a Phoenix connector. With that Phoenix connector, you can then use that temperature and probe to monitor the temperature of another device or a cabinet or a rack or wherever you have that temperature probe mounted. You can use that information in the local program to then automatically trigger something based on the temperature thresholds. So whether it's turning on a series of fans or it's turning off something that's generating too much heat, you can use that information in the program, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. All right. So we've talked about the devices. We've talked about, the different things that you can do with the inputs and outputs. Let's get into how we can control these. So the first thing I want to show off is actually a little bit different. Normally I would show you the local interface, but because we're going to spend so much time in the local interface here in a minute, I'm actually going to show you a different avenue of control. So to start with, we're actually going to go over here and we're going to look at the cloud. So this is the NETIO Cloud. It's a credit-based system. So you can get the device, plug it in. The credits that come with the system get you started for at least a year to get to play around with the system, really kind of try it out. So we give you the credits to do that. Then after that, it's a matter of purchasing credits and applying it to the account, which we can talk about that in a later show to really kind of dive into the details of that and how it benefits you to do that credit-based system. So with this cloud system, a couple things I want to point out. What you are able to do with this, of course, is you can sign in wherever you are. If you have internet service, you can sign into the cloud. You can control those devices that you have connected to it. So for instance, we have a device here that's labeled London East. If I want to, I can go in and make sure, hey, output 1 is supposed to be on, right? So we're going to turn it on. Output 2 is also supposed to be on. We're also going to turn that one on. From here, let's say, okay, output 3 should be reset because there's a problem. Well, I can simply go over here, hit the reset button, and it's going to turn that outlet off. And in just a moment, it's going to turn it back on. Really straightforward stuff, really simple and easy. If you have seen any cloud service out there, it looks pretty similar, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. At least that's what we say here in the United States. Okay, so what are some other interesting things that you can do with this? Well, at this point, I'm actually in the group control function. So in here, I can say, well, London East is actually an 8-outlet device, but I need to control 2 different PDUs at the same time. So I need to control output number 3 on this PDU, but I also need to control output number 2 on this 2PZ. So I'm going to go ahead and select those 2 there. And I'm actually just going to turn off both of those outlets. It's going to say, do you want to do that? I'm like, yes, I do. So we can turn it off. Pretty simple stuff. Pretty cool that we can group it together and give you that capabilities. We can also do sequencing. Really great thing about sequencing is we can actually set this on a sequence. So we can say, I need these 2 to turn on, but I need London East to turn on first, right? So we could say turn on, we put a delay of 2 seconds in between them, and we start that sequence. It's going to turn on that one, wait 2 seconds, and then turn on that one. Pretty straightforward stuff, pretty simple, but this is really going to give you that ability to go in, control those outlets, and make sure everything is working correctly. A couple other things you can do really quick just to round this off. When you register to the cloud, if you have, say, an extra, other technicians that work with you or under you, you can actually create additional accounts, and you can then share access to those PDUs to those other accounts. When you share access to those accounts, you can actually define what access they have, all the way down to individual outlets. So you can say, I want to give this person, this one technician, access to everything. He's my veteran technician. He's been doing this forever. I want to give him access to everything, right? He's my right-hand man, whatever it is. But this other technician, he's brand new. He's, an 18-year-old kid, doesn't know what he's doing. I only want to give him access to one outlet, and that one outlet only controls a light bulb. or whatever it is. So with that, you can go in and say, I only give him access to that one. He can turn that one on and off. Or you can say he doesn't have access to anything. He can only see what's happening. He can only see what the status is. Okay. You also have the ability to lay out the system however you see fit. So you can have multiple folders, and inside of those folders, you can move your PDUs into different categories or different layouts. This gives you the ability to really sort and configure your layout of the system. And from there, it makes it really simple because you can share access to that one folder as in a very simple way. So you can say this one folder is access to everybody. This folder over here, however, access to only 2 people, or however you want to lay that out. So you have the ability to do that. So that's our cloud service. There's other really cool things you can do with that. We're going to dive deeper into the cloud service in a future video. So we won't go too far into that right now. Instead, I just wanted to show you that this is one way that you can control the system, right? So the great thing about this is that this is the thing that you use when you get that phone call at 5 p.m. on Friday and they say nothing's working. You can say, well, hang on, give me 1 second. Let me push a button really quick. Push that button. Wait 3 seconds. How about now? Is everything working okay? It is? Great. Have a wonderful weekend. I will follow up with you on Monday to make sure everything is still continuing to work. If you have any other issues, give me a call. Right? You look like a hero because everything's fixed, everything's working, everyone's happy, and we move forward. Right? You're going to follow up with them because you're a good person and you know how to run your business, and follow up, of course, is good business. You're going to follow up with them on Monday, make sure that they're still happy, everything's fine. Ask them, how was the party? How was the show? How was the whatever? And move on from there. Cool? Cool. All right, let's see. I'm going to follow up here really quick. Nothing there. Okay, perfect. All right, so from here, we're actually going to dive in directly to the PDU. All right, so this is another way to control the PDU. And in fact, I need to plug this guy back in really quick because I was going to show him off. Okay, so that is coming back online. We should see our outputs. Wonderful. All right, so this here is our local interface for a PDU. What we see in here is some pretty cool stuff. Right away, I just want to show this off. So I am local to the network that this PDU is connected to. So I am on the network, the same network that it's connected to, or I have a VPN access to that network if I am remotely accessing the system. So I can connect to it here and see what's going on. This is one way that you can access the system. If you want to control it, you get the phone call that says, hey, this isn't working. You say, great, give me 1 second. I'm going to VPN into the system, push a button. So in this case, I'm going to say reset outlet 1, and we're going to reset, and we're going to move on from there, right? Pretty simple, straightforward stuff. This screen is also, this interface is also how you will access the system to configure it to do different things, right? So we can turn outlets on and off. We can see the power usage or the current or the metering or whatever you have going on that you want to see what's happening here. So in this case, I'm actually drawing just a very small amount. I'm connected to a little LED light bulb. I'm drawing 57 milliamps, so a very, very small amount. I can see the voltage. Of course, we're here in the US, so 121 volts is well within our spec for here in the US. And of course, we're 60 hertz frequency. So we're locked in at 60 hertz, which is great. Looks like everything's working like it should be there. And we can see our power factor. So we're only drawing 5 watts, pretty simple, straightforward stuff. Okay, so this is great. But what do we do with this, right? We have all this information. We have access to the device. What else can we do with it? Well, that's where our PAB, our watchdogs, and our rules come into play. So how do we use this to make sure that we don't even get the phone call at 5 p.m. on Friday? Instead, how do we make the system fix it for us, right? So here's how we do that. First thing that we're going to do, we're going to use our watchdog. So in this case, we're going to say that the scenario is this, that the internet service is not that great, the modem keeps failing, or we have some kind of failure that causes the modem to not work correctly. And the workaround fix at this time is just to simply reset the modem, because maybe I don't own the modem. Maybe it's the modem that the service provider provided to us. And so I can't do anything to fix that yet. We're working on on something, maybe, whatever it is, whatever the scenario. But in this case, the workaround fix at this moment is we're going to reset that whenever there's a problem. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to simply ping google.com. Now, there's a bunch of code here. What does this mean? What does this give us? What are we supposed to do with all of this? Well, that's where our online configuration comes into play. So let's take a look at that and see what it looks like. So we're going to go over to this guy here. All right. So we are within the watchdog portion of this. And what the watchdog is this is our network connection. This is our intelligence on the network. We're going to ping another device and make sure that it's still responding. Within this thing here, what we can do is we can say, well, I'm going to ping google.com. That's pretty simple, right? We just type in a URL. This is where we're going to ping. Maybe you have a local DNS that's on your own network, so you can use local DNS URLs. You can use an IP address. In this case, for instance, over here, we can ping. What I am doing is I'm pinging my router right here. And we can use this to configure how we ping that device. So this is where things get really important. So we're going to look at, this is our watchdog, and we're going to go in here. Whoops. There we go. And in our watchdog, this is what the definition of each one of those lines mean. So I'm going to go through these really quick. You can go through and read this how you want to. We'll make sure that all this is available. In fact, all of this is available on our website through our wiki, but we'll make sure that all this is available for everybody. So what we have in here, first thing is our target. Well, that's pretty straightforward. What is the target? Well, it's the address that we're going to be monitoring, right? It's the one that we're going to ping. So in this case, I'm pinging google.com. Pretty straightforward. Ping interval. Well, what does that mean? It's the time in between the pings. So the first ping happens, and we're going to wait this amount of time before we ping that address again, right? So in this case, it's in seconds. So I have done 300 seconds. That's about 5 minutes. Now, I did that on purpose. Google doesn't like it when you ping them too often. If you do it too often, your address gets blacklisted, and you can actually run into an issue with your DNS service. So be mindful when you do that. Don't do every 5 seconds. Well, I'm doing 5 minutes because that's plenty of time. That's a very realistic number for us to be pinging an outside service. You can go less than that. I wouldn't go any less than maybe a minute. From there, we have our timeout. Well, what does timeout mean? Timeout means the time that we're waiting for an answer. So I'm going to wait 10 seconds. Now, in the world of computers, 10 seconds is a really long time. So we should get a response within that period of time. But we're also pinging something outside on the internet. Traffic happens. Okay, that's the best way to put that. Traffic happens. Things happen to where it maybe doesn't get back to us like it's supposed to. So what happens if it doesn't get back to us, but things are still working? Well, that's where our max timeouts come into play. So the max timeouts, what that means is we're going to say it's the number of times that there can be a failed response, right? So we're going to time out 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, it's going to ping again. And if it fails again, that's 2, right? We're going to keep adding the number to it. If it fails 3 times, okay? 3 times, if it fails, only then are we going to move to the next step. And in this case, it's our time to reboot, right? So when it has failed 3 times, we are going to wait this amount of time before we reboot. In this case, this is 11 minutes. So I've put a random number in there. This can definitely be fine-tuned to react how you want the system to react, right? Maybe you want it to say, well, it's failed 3 times. I want it to just immediately reset. In that case, we can go in and say, okay, well, we're just going to wait 1 second, right? After 1 second, it's going to reset after trying 3 times to ping. And actually, the better term for this isn't the reset. This is we're raising a flag, right? We're setting the flag to true, right? The fail is true. Okay. Then from there, we're going to say how many times do we want to run all of this before we stop, right? Because the truth is we don't necessarily want to keep doing this over and over and over and over again, because that can cause other problems. That can cause us to reset a device too often or too many times within a small period of time, right? So we want to be careful of that. So in this case, we're only going to do this 3 times, right? That's the number that I put in there. You can put in there whatever you want, but we use some interesting coding with this. We can say, okay, we're going to put a -1 that means we're only going to run this rule once, right? And then it remains in the failed state, okay? So that means that we're going to reset one time, and it's going to stay in this failed state until it comes back, right? You can also put a 0. If you do put a 0 in there, just be aware. That means we're going to continuously run this loop over and over and over again forever until that device responds. All right, so just be aware of that. We don't want to do that too much. So in this case, I'm going to go back to my 3. Now, the start delay. This is kind of interesting. It's at the bottom when this is actually something that happens first. So the start delay, what that simply means is that, let's say there's a power outage. Power is restored to the entire system. The PDU is going to wait 60 seconds before it starts to do this entire program. Okay? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward stuff. All it's really doing is just ensuring I don't want to start doing this immediately because it might take a little bit of time for the modem to kick on and start working like it's supposed to. All right? So you can do some really cool things with this. You can create, different avenues of checking to see if different IP addresses are responding. So in this case, I'm waiting a little bit longer. This is a long-term ping. We're taking 5 minutes to ping it to google.com because that's a wide area network, right? That's on the internet. Instead, if we're local to the network, well, that's much easier. There's still a lot of traffic, but it's a lot more civilized traffic, is what I like to say. It's a lot more close to the home, so it's much easier to respond more quickly, right? So in this case, if I ping my router, I'm going to ping once every 5 seconds. Now that's a lot, okay? 5 seconds is still a lot, but it's definitely not every 1 second, right? So 5 seconds. We're going to time out after 3 seconds. So if I don't hear a response after 3 seconds, there's a problem, right? I'm going to do that 3 times, right? Because maybe my router is not that great. Maybe it's, kind of crappy. It's provided by the the ISP. It's not that great. We don't want to do that too often, right? So we're going to try it 3 times, right? Time to reboot, 180 seconds. So we're going to wait 2 minutes after it's failed 3 times before we reset. Then, of course, we're only going to do that once, right? We don't want to do that over and over again. That's too much, right? We just want to do it one time. And then we're going to do our start delay at 30 seconds because my modem comes on pretty quickly. And at least the local area network interface is booted up much faster than the internet connection can be established because I'm not waiting for something on the other side, right? So we can do 30 seconds. And that's where you do from that. Okay, cool. So we went over this. Now, I just dumped a lot of information on you. And please, if you have questions, my email address is right here. So please feel free to shoot me an email. We also have on the call today with us, and he's lurking on the call, is Bretislav. He's our CEO. Please feel free to reach out to anybody at NETIO. We're happy to help out and answer any questions for you. In fact, we'll even help you do some of the programming. Okay? Reach out to us. Let us know what's going on. See what you're trying to do, and we'll help you out with it. But we're not done. We've talked about the local network, right? The intelligence of the network connection. So what about all of the other sensors that we have, right? This PDU has the ability to monitor or meter the power usage, right? So I can say over here, well, output 1 right now is drawing 57 milliamps, right? Let's say this is my modem and router, right? Or my modem, and it's drawing, it's a really good modem. It doesn't draw that much power, whatever it is, right? So we can use this in here and say, okay, well, if it's between 40 milliamps, and we'll show that here, because this current is in milliamps. Where are you? Milliamps, okay? I think it's up here at the top. There it is, current in milliamps, right? So it's our current in milliamps. So now there's different ways of reading this. We can read it as a range, we can read it as a zone, and we can do a daylight sunrise, sunrise sunset. Using that, we can then combine these things together. So let's say, for instance, my modem is only supposed to draw 57 milliamps. So we're going to say if it's within 40 milliamps and 100 milliamps, right? Then it's within range. It's within the nominal usage of it, right? So that's where we want to be. If it leaves that, if it's outside of that, that's when we have a problem. So right now it's true, right? Our flag is true because it's been 2 minutes. That's what this time hysteresis is. 2 minutes of metering has shown that this device is at 57 milliamps, which is within this range, right? So for 2 minutes, now our flag says true, right? So we could use that to say, hey, it's drawing the right amount of current. Well, why is that important? Well, the truth is that when a device is locked up, when something isn't working right, usually what you will see is either a spike or an increase or a decrease in power draw. So think of a PoE switch. When a PoE switch has a lockup of some kind, usually its power draw drops because it's not using the PoE power like it's supposed to. And in that case, that tells us there's a problem with that switch, right? So maybe we can still ping something on the other side of it because the network connection is still working, but the power draw is much less from what it's supposed to be, right? So we can use all of that information to say, well, I can still ping something, but the power draw is outside of what it's supposed to do. So now we know that there's an actual problem, and now we can use that information to then use something for that or do something about that. And that's where the rules come in. So with these rules, we can then combine all of these together. We can either run them individually. So in this case, the CR01 is we're going to say CR01 WDT failed equals true. Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, it's all we're really doing is we're saying, hey, this watchdog here, the network ping is failed. It's in the failed state. That's true. Okay. Well, we can see that by saying CR01, go to our watchdog CR01. Well, that's my modem, 0.1. When we go back here and look at this, when this fail state becomes true, we are going to do this action. Well, what is that action? Well, let's go over here, take a look at our rules. Here is our actions right here. So we're going to say output 1. When this is true, right? We're going to take output 1 and we're going to do action number 2. Well, action number 2 is a short off. That means we're going to do a reset, right? So short off means that we're assuming that it's on, we're going to turn it off and bring it back on, right? Short on means that it was off, we're going to turn it on and turn it back off, okay? And so we can use that to then write a program, write a configuration for that device to automatically reset. If I can't reach my modem, right, or my router from my PDU, that means that there's something wrong with the router, right? Maybe I'm connected directly to it through an Ethernet connection. If I'm connected directly to it and I can't reach it, that means that, hey, there's a failure. We need to do something about that. Well, traditionally, you get the phone call 5 p.m. on a Friday. My internet's not working. You need to get out here and fix it right now. I have a bunch of friends over at my house. My servers at the office aren't working. Whatever it is. So now you get in the truck, you drive all the way over there, you find out it's just the really bad modem that they have from their service provider, and it's a pain, and it's never working like it's supposed to. So what do? Unplug it, plug it back in, wait 30 seconds, and everything's working fine. You just wasted 2 hours of your happiness on a Friday night to go over there and do that simple fact, or do that simple action. So this does that for you. This says, is the modem or is the router responding to a ping? It's not. We're going to take the actions within this watchdog here, and every time that we hit the restart here, we're going to do this action, right? So we're going to reset outlet 1, then we're going to wait a period of time, see if it responds. If it doesn't respond, do it all over again, right? In my case, I don't have it doing it again. I have it doing it only once. But you can say, I want to do it at least 2 times, maybe 3 times, 100 times, right? Or infinite. It just continues to do it until it responds. Be careful of the infinite. You can, if you don't have your timer set correctly, you can get locked into an infinite loop. And now you have to go out there because there's a much bigger problem, because you might actually damage a piece of product or a piece of equipment. Okay. So we've looked at what happens when one thing happens. Well, my thing is, how do we solve the problem of the false positives? What is a false positive? Well, a false positive is the system says there's a problem and it does something with it, and maybe it resets something, but there was never an actual problem, right? It didn't need to be reset. And now we're creating a much bigger problem because we reset power to something, right? So how do we stop that from happening? Well, The easiest way to do that is you combine multiple triggers into one rule. So this Google and router, we're taking both watchdogs right here, putting it together in one rule and saying, here's our condition, which is the whole thing. There's a boot delay of 60 seconds, and our operator is and, right? So with this and, we can say, okay, here is, it's either or and, right? In this case, there's an or, scroll down here, and or operator, right? So we can say all of these here must be flagged at whatever it is, true, true, or false, right? If all of these are true, we're now going to reset, and only now, right? So this makes sure that we're not doing it without making sure that there's more problems. It's checks and balances. We're making sure that there's more than one thing wrong. In this case, what we're doing is we're saying, well, I can't ping my router 192.168.4.1, right? I also cannot ping google.com, right? So both of those are down, right? And more importantly, we're combining our network logic with our metering logic by saying it's outside of the range of power draw, right? It's outside of that 400 milliamps to 100 milliamps. And when that is true, when that is false, because we're outside, true means that we're inside, false means that we're outside. And only then are we going to reset that device. What this does is it gives you peace of mind to know the system is automatically doing what it's supposed to do. It's going to reset that device, but it's only going to reset it when there's an actual problem, right? Okay. One more thing I'm going to add into this. One more cool little thing. Let's say, for instance, this is a corporate location or a retail location where we don't want the system to do things automatically. We want the system to only respond when a human interacts with it, because a human has a brain, right? We can look around and say, hey, I don't want to reset that right now, because if I do, it's going to cause a bigger problem over here. Instead, I'm only going to reset it when everything is ready, right? So that's where this comes in. The front of the PDU on many of our PDUs has a Phoenix connector. So we're going to go here to the 8KS. This Phoenix connector on the front of it allows you to attach a button, because all it's looking for is a closed connection. It's also a 12-volt output on there, so you can use things like motion detectors, tamper switches, different things like that. It's also where you would connect a temperature monitor probe that we have as for sale also. However, in this usage, in this scenario, we're going to use that for a momentary switch. We're going to put a button on it. With that button, we're going to go over here, same everything here as before, right? We're going to combine our metering, we're going to combine our network logic, all of that together into one rule, but we're going to put one extra thing on there. We're going to put a button. When that button is closed, when that connector is closed, and only when that connector is closed are we going to do this action. So what you can do is you can say, I'm going to teach the managers that when there's a problem and they're ready to solve the problem, they push this red button over here, and now it's going to reset. Now it's going to go through the logic of making sure that everything is working. Now it's going to do everything that it's supposed to do to bring everything back online to start working again. Because again, this is one of those opportunities to say, well, if they push this button, but there's nothing wrong, well, we also don't want to reset if there's nothing wrong, even if they do hit that button, right? We want to make sure that it only resets if there is an actual problem. Cool? All right. So all that to say, NETIO Products has different PDUs, different opportunities, different layouts of outlets, different configurations of outlets for your local application. What we can do is you give us a call, reach out to us through our website, through our email addresses, whatever it is. Of course, my email is over here. If you are in the United States, please feel free to reach out to me. If you are outside of the United States, again, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help out however it is. If you're looking for sales, I will get you over to them. If you're looking for assistance, I will help you out however I can. We're part of one big team. We're happy to help out globally, however that happens. So please reach out to us for that. But also, this system, as we described throughout this entire webinar, is how we make sure that your Friday at 5 p.m. continues to be peaceful, continues to be happy because you are still sitting in your chair, still watching the game and eating your dinner.